The winter of 2026 began just like any other in New York City. The days grew shorter, a familiar chill settled into the air, and New Yorkers went about their business. We saw the usual light dustings of snow in December, just enough to make the city look festive for the holidays. No one suspected what was coming. It felt routine, almost gentle for a New York winter. Residents pulled their warmer coats from the back of the closet, but there was no sense of urgency, no inkling that we were on the cusp of something truly historic and incredibly challenging. We were living in the calm before the storm, completely unaware of the meteorological drama unfolding high above us. Everything changed on January 25th. A significant snowstorm swept through the city, acting as the opening act for a much more severe and prolonged weather event. This wasn't just another winter storm, it was a turning point. The snow that fell that day was heavy and wet, and it didn't melt. Instead, it became the frozen foundation for what was to come. The storm ushered in a period of intense, biting cold that gripped the 5 boroughs and refused to let go. The city, which had been moving at its usual frantic pace, suddenly found itself slowing down, forced to contend with a force of nature that was far from ordinary. The shift was dramatic and swift. One week, people were jogging in Central Park with a light jacket. The next, they were bundled in layers, bracing against winds that felt like they were slicing through steel. The city's energy, its very pulse, seemed to change overnight. The familiar sounds of traffic and bustling crowds were muffled by a thick blanket of white. This was the moment the winter of 2026 stopped being normal and started its journey into the history books. It was a stark reminder that even in a city as modern and resilient as New York, nature always has the final say in the matter. Before that pivotal January storm, the conversations around the city were typical. People complained about the cold, but it was a familiar complaint, a part of the New York winter ritual. After the storm, the tone changed. It became about survival, about logistics, about how to simply get through the day. The city that never sleeps was suddenly being forced into a state of hibernation. The unremarkably mild start to the season was now a distant memory, replaced by the harsh reality of a deep freeze that would test the limits of the city and its more than 8 million residents in the weeks that followed. So what caused this sudden dramatic plunge into an Arctic state? The answer lies high up in our atmosphere, with something called the polar vortex. You've likely heard the term on weather reports, but it's worth understanding. Think of it as a huge area of very cold, swirling air that normally sits right over the North Pole, contained by a strong atmospheric current. It's like a spinning top of frigid air, kept in its place far to the north. For most of the winter, it stays right where it belongs, and we experience relatively normal cold weather down here in New York City. But this year, that spinning top wobbled. That containment field for the polar vortex is the jet stream. The jet stream is a fast-moving river of air that flows around the globe. When it's strong and stable, it acts like a wall, keeping the Arctic air locked up in the polar regions. However, sometimes the jet stream weakens and develops large, wavy bends. When one of these deep waves, or meanders, dips far to the south over North America, it essentially opens a door. This allows a piece of that intensely cold polar vortex air to break free and spill southward, right down the east coast, directly toward us. It's an Arctic invasion. That is precisely what happened in late January 2026. A weakened jet stream allowed a lobe of the polar vortex to slide down and settle over the northeastern United States. The result was not just a day or two of cold, but a prolonged period of dangerously frigid temperatures. For 9 straight days, the thermometer in New York City did not climb above freezing. The weekly average high was a brutal -6 degrees Celsius. This wasn't just cold, it was a persistent, bone-chilling deep freeze that penetrated every corner of the city, making daily life a genuine struggle against the elements. This phenomenon explains why the cold was so intense and long-lasting. It wasn't just a passing cold front, it was a fundamental shift in the atmospheric pattern above us. Scientists continue to study whether changes in our climate are making the jet stream more prone to these wobbles, but the immediate effect was undeniable. New York City was effectively placed in a refrigerator, and the door was left wide open. This Arctic air takeover set the stage for the massive snowstorms that would follow, as the extreme cold met with moisture moving up the coast, creating the perfect conditions for historic blizzards. With the city locked in a deep freeze, daily life was completely upended. The simple act of leaving your apartment became a major undertaking. Sidewalks disappeared under mountains of snow, forcing pedestrians to forge narrow, winding paths. The sound of scraping shovels became the city's new morning chorus, a relentless battle waged by homeowners, shopkeepers, and building superintendents against the never-ending accumulation. For children, it was a winter wonderland. Schools were closed for days on end, and parks became playgrounds filled with laughter, snowball fights, and the construction of countless snowmen, some impressively tall and creative. But for adults, the situation was far more serious. The city's infrastructure strained under the pressure. In early February, a monster blizzard, officially named Winter Storm Hernando, hit the region. This storm was a bomb cyclone, a rapidly intensifying system that dumped nearly half a meter of snow on Central Park in just 2 days. The immense snowfall brought the city to a standstill. Mayor Zoran Mamdani declared a state of emergency, and a citywide travel ban was put into effect. The usually bustling streets of Manhattan fell silent, an eerie sight for a city known for its constant motion. The travel ban meant everything stopped. Subways ran on a limited emergency schedule, but buses were pulled from the roads, taxis vanished, the airports were closed, stranding thousands of travelers. For those who needed to get to essential jobs, like doctors and nurses, it was a nightmare. Even the mayor's press conferences took on a surreal tone, with a warning issued to residents not to throw snowballs at police officers, a sign of both the playful and tense atmosphere coexisting in the frozen city. It was a clear demonstration of how quickly a modern metropolis can be brought to its knees by the sheer force of winter. The challenges were everywhere. Pipes froze and burst in older apartment buildings, leaving residents without water. The sheer weight of the snow on rooftops became a serious concern. Yet amid the struggle, there were moments of community. Neighbors helped each other shovel out their cars and sidewalks. Strangers worked together to push stuck vehicles out of snowdrifts. While the city was physically paralyzed, the spirit of New Yorkers, their resilience and willingness to help one another in a crisis, was on full display. It was a difficult, frustrating, and often dangerous time, but it also brought out the best in many people. To truly grasp the severity of this winter, we have to look at the history books. New York City has seen its share of harsh winters, but the combination of prolonged, extreme cold and massive snowfall in 2026 is exceptionally rare. Since record-keeping began back in 1869, only a handful of winters have been more severe. This season has put itself in the same conversation as the legendary winters of 1873, 1961, and, most famously, the Great Blizzard of 1888. That historic storm paralyzed the East Coast and became the benchmark against which all other snowstorms are measured. This year's numbers tell the story. The 9 consecutive days with temperatures never rising above freezing, coupled with the massive dump from Winter Storm Hernando, created a 1-2 punch that few living New Yorkers have ever experienced. It's one thing to have a lot of snow, it's another to have extreme cold. To have both for an extended period is what makes this winter so historically significant. It's a reminder that despite all our technological advancements, we are still subject to the whims of weather patterns that have shaped life in this region for centuries. This winter will be remembered and talked about for generations. As we stand here on February 27th, there's a sense of exhaustion across the city. People are tired of the cold, tired of the snow, tired of the disruption. The novelty has long worn off, replaced by a deep yearning for the first signs of spring. The mountains of snow, now dirty and gray, line every street, a constant reminder of what we've been through. But winter is not done with us yet. Forecasters are watching another system that could bring more snow in the coming week. While daily high temperatures are expected to creep above freezing more often, the threat of another storm looms. The coming weeks will determine where this winter ultimately ranks in the city's history. Will we see a gradual thaw, or is there one more major storm waiting for us? Whatever happens, the winter of 2026 has already left an indelible mark on New York City. It has tested our infrastructure, our patience, and our resilience. It has created memories, both of hardship and of community spirit. As we look toward March, we do so with caution, hoping for relief but prepared for the reality that in New York, winter often saves its final parting shot for when you least expect it.